Hi, this is Kimberly. I guess you've noticed that I've been following this Gabby Petito case. Number one, she's a YouTuber, so that caught my interest. And another thing is she's a van lifer, and well, that's one of my goals one day. I want to be a van lifer. Not a permanent one, just, short term. But a lot of people have asked me to speak on this, and even though we all know who did it, I'd like to wait until he's officially arrested or until there's just some even more damning evidence. And, it's bull about him hanging out there in the nature reserve. I mean, it's all they say it's like 70% flooded and there's alligators everywhere and bugs. The bugs would be enough to get me. I'd be out of there screaming. But I think his parents know where he is, too. I have a lot to say on this, but just like I did with the piece of shit Grouch case, I waited until she was arrested. Even though we all knew who did it, we just didn't know the details. So I will. It's coming. It's coming, guys. But in the meanwhile, I'm very interested in watching news stories, and when I see one that I think is interesting, I've just been gathering them together. So if it doesn't strike your fancy, I understand that. And I'm finishing up the letters from Christopher Reboot. Then I have to get back to the Rosenbaum trial. I've ignored that long enough, but I have found that I work better and can put videos out faster if I just concentrate on one thing at a time. And even though I've been doing this Gabby stuff, but it's just better for my ADD and OCD and CRS and all those, Anyway, you'll hear from me soon on this case. Believe me. Much love and peace. Thank you for listening.
Your focus today, though, as I understand it, is the actual scene where she was found and whether or not she was actually killed there or elsewhere. Why is that?
Well, the first thing a medical examiner does when goes to any scene of death is to determine mentally or by testing whether that's the place where the person died or whether this is a secondary scene. In this instance, was Gabby killed at the spot she was found, or was she killed elsewhere and then taken and placed where she was? That's one feature that is important to the police investigation. The looking at the body by the medical examiner also tells you how long she may have been dead, approximately how long she was dead. There's a 25-day interval potentially here. And the insects on the body. This is an open scene. In New York City, you get maggots and flies on bodies that begin to decompose, and they tell you how long the person has been dead. And in the scene that she's found, and from the videos, there are lots of insects in those areas. So there are lots of different insects. The insects tell you how long somebody's been dead, and also insects tend to live in a few miles of where they're found.
So, Dr. Baden, if I'm following the trail right here that you're laying for us, what we find out from that autopsy today may be rather monumental in terms of getting some answers, not just on whether or not this is in fact confirmed Gabby Petito, but it may tell us somewhat about that crime.
Yes, absolutely. Where it happened, when it happened, as well as the cause of death.
Right.
And that,
which we would anticipate, but these other things with the insect reading and all of that.
Yeah, and also the autopsy tells you what her last meal was. The stomach contents at the autopsy
that's interesting.
Tells you what food she last ate and when she ate it by the extent of digestion. It takes a few hours for it. And in this situation where you have this outpouring of social media, maybe they have on it when they last had something to eat. And that would tell you how long after the last meal she died.
I think it was them protecting their son, but I think they just took it too far. If their son was innocent. I don't feel that they should have lawyered up as soon as he came back into the state. And I felt that if he had nothing to do with it, then they should have released a statement somehow stating his innocence. Last time that we saw Gabby was right when we moved in June. They were working on the van, I guess to get ready for the trip. We never even knew they were going on a trip, but she was in the back of the van doing something, and as we pulled away, she turned, waved, I waved back, and she smiled, and we drove away. That's the last time we saw her. You know, she was a pretty girl, and, you know, you see her turn around and just smile, and, you know, knowing that you see the images on their trip of her smiling, it is a haunting, was a haunting sight and memory.
So, Judge, it's determined to be a homicide, and there's only one person of interest, right? Is that basically it?
Yeah, he's a person of interest. They're not calling him a suspect. I suspect there are reasons they're not calling him a suspect.
Why?
Well,
Why would
there are
that be?
certain things, certain legal obligations that kick in once you're a suspect, once you're labeled a suspect. And I think the police are not under a, any kind of requirement that they call him a suspect now. Here's the issue in this case. If the manner of death is a homicide, we don't know the cause of death. Was she hit with blunt force trauma? Was there a strangulation? I'm kind of inclined to think there was something that was, very physical, because they were physical. But my biggest concern is something that I said last week, and that is that the cops in Utah did not make an arrest. And the dispatcher said that there was a caller saying that he was hitting her. In addition to that, we've got another witness who says he was hitting her. And I pulled up the Utah statute, which is like most statutes across the country. And I know this because I've been doing domestic violence prosecutions since 1978, okay? There is something called mandatory arrest. The cops are mandated to determine who the primary aggressor is. Not the last person to hit, but who's a primary aggressor.
Okay.
We know from the scene last week that he was holding her face, and the police say, oh, he was holding her face to stop her from hitting him, to stop him from hitting her. He wasn't letting her in the car. She was chasing the car. He had her phone. He wouldn't give her the phone. We're talking jealousy, control, all the indicia of domestic violence, and they tell them to separate, and they talk about mental health. No, this is domestic violence. You make an arrest, you decide who's the aggressor, and under Utah law, you arrest one of them. And if that were the case, this would not be happening.
Wow.
What do you think, Geraldo?
Well, I think a lot of things. I think the police work certainly deserves scrutiny, harsh scrutiny, in light of what we know about what they did and did not do. A couple of other points, though. Men think they're so slick. They think that, it never happened before. They can put one over on the authorities. They can, make it seem, I don't know what happened to her. My goodness, what happened? The man always did it. I mean, that's my presumption. My working presumption is the guy did it. Start your investigation right there. The other thing is social media is a lie. When you see social media, Instagram, all these other things the kids are into, everybody's skinny, everybody's beautiful, everybody's in love, everybody's dancing and skipping, and you envy them, and you never envy anybody. Everyone's got situations in their life.
For sure.
Live your life. Don't look at these pretty people and say, I want to be like them.
He was hardly pretty, though. Sean?
So, listen, I agree with the judge. Law enforcement left something to be desired in how they handled this case. But I'll just tell you, as a former prosecutor, we also had a mandatory arrest statute in Wisconsin. But oftentimes the cops, I don't want to defend them, but they come across these situations all the time. And women oftentimes will recant. So they look at the seriousness of what the altercation was. I'm just telling you the perspective of law enforcement. How serious was the altercation, and they don't make the arrest. That's what happens. But hold on one second. But I want to look at the facts here. I mean, we all suspect, we all have the right suspect, I think, Brian Laundrie. But there's this consciousness of guilt. What did he do after the crime, right? So he flees the scene. He goes back to Florida. without his fiancee, doesn't tell anybody where she is, doesn't talk to the parents, doesn't talk to the cops, and lo and behold, he vacates his parents' house and he can't be found. Everything he's done shows a consciousness of guilt that he was the one who caused the homicide.
Well, but to your point, Judge, the aggressor is the one who should be locked up. Instead of just separating them for the night, he should have been arrested.
Because
then her parents would have known.
Then her parents would have known, and there would be a different situation. Now, I started the first domestic violence unit in the nation in 1978. Okay, it was a Department of Justice. It was a pilot program.
I was 7
okay,
then.
You were 7 then. Okay, well I'm old. Okay, so here's the thing. We know that if the police can't make an arrest and you let them go on their merry way, they end up dead or seriously injured, because domestic violence increases in intensity, frequency, and severity, and the guy thinks he's got it all over everybody as time goes on.
But you also know,
this,
Judge,
I know.
But what will happen is the woman will all of a sudden say, no, I was the guilty party. I was the aggressor.
Wait a
and
minute.
how do the cops figure
you know what?
that out? That's what happened in this case, too.
That wasn't the case. If she has the right support, if she has a support system where she's got shelter and she's got opportunities to defend herself, then cops don't say, hey,
Judge,
you know, she liked it, let her have
Had
it.
the arrest been made, she
mom?
could still be alive today. Had law enforcement done what they were supposed to, she would probably still be alive. You're right.
That's right.
Did she call her mom? What did the parents know? What did the guy's parents know? When he went home, did he speak to his parents?
Oh,
if your
that's the
kid,
question.
here's the question, everybody. Your son is suspected of something. Did he talk to his parents? Would you, if you were a parent, then call the authorities? What would you do?
I think there's a question of whether he ever actually went to Florida.
Oh, of course.
So and you have this crazy situation. Oh, go ahead.
Do you think the parents could be charged?
Sure. I mean, I'm not a lawyer.
No.
But
if they helped him escape, if they created a detour and said, hey, he went this way, but he went to Mexico.
They're not talking to the authorities.
But how did his vehicle get there then? Because the white van got back to Florida.
Well, that's a great
to the house,
question.
right?
How did it get there?
Didn't go back
and
to
remember,
Florida.
the sister goes on Good Morning America last week, and she says, I haven't been able to talk to him. I haven't seen him, and I haven't been able to talk to him. But she lives right there. But she can't go in the house and see her brother?
And
I mean, I don't think he was ever there.
She used a very interesting word. She said, you know, there must have been a misunderstanding. And to me, I just kind of spun around a few times, and I said, she knows that something happened.
Right.
She didn't make that up.
Well, I just hope that he had the good taste to take his own life.
See, I would disagree.
I think the family deserves justice and that he should be held.
Yeah, suicide's a cowardly way out. I agree. Stay for the crime.
And if you hit a woman, you're a coward.
As new developments continue in the case around the clock, let's dig into what happens next with criminal defense attorneys Andell Brown and Brian Claypool. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, Shanann. Thank you, Shanann. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so very interesting. I want to read something from FoxNews.com about police showing up to talk to the parents. It says Northport police entered the Laundrie home Friday evening. This is the boyfriend's family home. Police were shocked to learn that Brian Laundrie wasn't there, and his parents told investigators that they hadn't seen him since Tuesday, September 14th. So they didn't even report him, quote unquote, missing. It was that police showed up there, and that's how they found out he hadn't been seen allegedly by his parents since Tuesday. Brian, what potential liability or charges could be in the works for the parents if it turns out that Brian Laundrie is in any way responsible or that they helped him escape in some way?
Yeah, Shannon, the most relevant charge would be what's called accessory after the fact. And that means that arguably the parents knew that their son Brian Laundrie may have committed a crime, in this case a first-degree felony, and they provided any aid whatsoever to help him escape authorities. I looked at the statute in Florida. It's very broad. So if there's any evidence that law enforcement unveiled that shows any communications between Brian Laundrie and his parents where he's disclosing what happened to Gabby and it's bad news, and the parents failed to tell law enforcement where he's going, or they lie to law enforcement, for example, then they could be charged with accessory after the fact. But one other point, Shannon, that's shocking to me is why is Brian Laundrie not found? Why didn't they have surveillance on this guy from the minute he got back in town? What rational human being would get back from a trip without his fiance and not comment on it at all and not go out in the media? Yeah, not go out and say, hey, where is she? Let's go find her. He didn't do a single thing but flee. And that's consciousness of guilt. So I'm shocked that they didn't do surveillance on Brian Laundrie.
Well, the three of us being attorneys, we all know it's innocent until proven guilty, but he's taking a lot of actions that raise a lot of questions for people. And of course, police would have more information. They've said they're not sharing everything, as would be the case, because they have things close to the case that only the person who would have potentially perpetrated a crime would know. But I want to play something, Brian, to your point, from Josh Taylor. He is the Northport Police Department spokesperson about not tracking Brian.
He would not speak with us. So knowing that, we weren't dedicating a whole lot of resources to following around someone who is not wanted on a crime.
So, Andel, what do you make of that?
I mean, you know, it's a tough situation, Shannon. You have a small town police department with limited resources. They're trying to investigate this murder. There are leads all across the country, and I guess they thought that wasn't the best use of their resources. But it's also mind-blowing because really we only have one suspect, and that's Brian Laundrie. He was the last person that was seen with her. He's acting in ways that, as Brian said, and you agreed, Shannon, are strange. What normal person acts in that way? I think every resource should have been dedicated to figuring out what Brian Laundrie's up to, where he's going, and where he is now. I think there are way more questions than answers, and his behavior has done nothing but put him squarely in the crosshairs of law enforcement.
Yeah, and Andel, you mentioned this is a smaller police force down there, so there are questions now about the FBI, about other agencies, and now we have several states potentially involved. So, Andel, a quick comment from you about when the FBI should have gotten involved, did get involved, where we can go from here with that federal agency.
Right. And, you know, the FBI, they come in, they bring resources that small town would never have. They're up and going right now. It's hard for us to say when they should have gotten involved because, remember, they were searching in Utah, acres upon acres upon acres, looking to find Gabby's body. They were searching in Wyoming. There are numerous places they were looking for until they recently got the tips, some from the vlogger that saw the van at the park, some from various people where they were able to narrow their search. But for a long period of time, they were looking over a very expansive piece of territory.
Yeah, so Brian, if it turns out that Brian Laundrie is in some way culpable or charged, and he is alive, and he has absconded to, say, another country, what would the extradition process be for the U.S. at this point?
Well, before we get to the extradition process, Shannon, I think we should talk about the autopsy. This is one of the most important autopsies you're going to see in criminal law in the last decade, because that autopsy of Gabby is going to be like the 13th juror, Shannon. In order for law enforcement to even pursue Brian Laundrie, they're going to need an autopsy report that reveals a homicide and not an accidental death. So what the coroner's going to have to look at is things like what's under Gabby's fingernails. Is there any evidence of a struggle? Is there possibly DNA of Brian Laundrie under her fingernails? Any scratch marks, any bruises on Gabby's body? Anything that coroner can use to determine homicide. And then they can go after Brian Laundrie. Depends on what country he's in to determine extradition laws. If he's in a country that doesn't allow extradition, then he might, be free from any charges.
Well, a lot of skeptics out there feel like if that's the case, he's gotten quite a head start with the assist potentially of his parents. But again, innocent until proven guilty. We will track this case to the end. And we appreciate both of you sharing your expertise. Andel and Brian, thank you. Gabby Petito never goes outside.
July 2nd, 2020. Exactly 1 year before a life-changing road trip would begin, Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie announced their engagement online. On Instagram, a picture of their first date. Gabby writing, "Brian asked me to marry him, and I said yes." 1 day later, Brian posting, "Till death do us part. I'm so happy." The answer was yes. Then there was the van. The 22-year-old and 23-year-old purchasing a vehicle to take them across country, a white 2012 Ford Transit van. New van means new adventures. And it would all begin on July 2nd, 2021, from the hamlet of Blue Point in Suffolk County on Long Island, where Gabby and Brian were visiting her parents, celebrating her brother's high school graduation. July 4th, on the road in their new home, outfitted for camping and cooking, the couple snapped photos at Monument Rocks in Scott City, Kansas. then to Colorado. 2 nights at the campsites at the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Reserve with sand surfing. Next stop, Utah. After leaving Colorado and getting stuck in a dust storm, the couple spent 3 nights in Zion National Park, hiking and pitching a picture-perfect campsite. From Zion to Cedar Breaks National Monument to Bryce Canyon National Park. The couple taking pictures and videos near the edge of the cliffs.
I love the van.
A few days later, Gabby posting photos from Mystic Hot Springs. Then hiking barefoot through Canyonlands National Park. After that, 12 days go by with no posts. Thursday, August 12th, Gabby posts photos from a trip just days before, a hike around the delicate arch at Arches National Park. Gabby noting she waited in a short line for someone to take their photo. Later, camping in Devil's Garden. But August 12th, things would take a turn.
Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb.
Officers called to reports of a disorderly conduct encountered Gabby and Brian in Moab City, Utah.
What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
Brian. Gabby, Brian, okay.
Brian tells police Gabby got frustrated because she was trying to start a blog. She had been working on it for hours. He says they got into a fight when he got in the van with dirty feet.
She just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go hike arches before the sun.
Gabby explains to officers she has anxiety and OCD.
Some days I have really bad OCD.
Brian is determined to be the victim and pleads with officers to not press charges.
I'm fine, and I love Gabby. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me.
Police ask the two to separate for the night. They take Brian to a hotel and give Gabby the keys to the van. The next day, Brian posts photos tagged in Arches National Park and then in Moab. A week after the altercation, Gabby posts, but it's unclear where the couple is in terms of location. She also posts her first and only YouTube video for her blog. It appears to chronicle the couple's relationship and travels. On August 25th, Gabby posts her last Instagram post, writing, "Happy Halloween," posing with a pumpkin in front of a mural outside the Monarch, a venue in Ogden, Utah, north of Salt Lake City. And then there's this. Jen Bethune says this video was taken in Teton County on 27th August around 6 p.m. And it shows a van that looks identical to Gabby's, but police have not confirmed it is hers. 2 days later, on the 29th of August,
My boyfriend and I picked up Brian.
a woman claims to pick up a hitchhiker from Coulter Bay Village, south of Grand Teton.
He approached us asking us for a ride because he needed to go to Jackson, which we were going to Jackson that night.
This happened about 5:30 p.m. After seeing social media videos, she now identifies that person as Brian.
I'm hoping this can help someone identify him.
On August 30th, Gabby's mother receives a text from her daughter, but believes she didn't send it.
I just believe she's in danger because she's not in touch with us, and she could be alone somewhere. She could be stranded somewhere in the wilderness, and she needs help.
2 days and more than 2,300 miles later, on September 1st, police say Brian arrives in Northport, Florida, with the van, but without Gabby. She's reported missing by her parents on Long Island on September 11th. That same day, the van is processed for evidence at the home the two shared with Brian's parents. Brian does not talk to the police or to the FBI. Then on September 15th, Brian is named a person of interest in the case. The police chief of Northport pleading with the Laundrie family to speak to them. At the time, they do not realize it, but Brian is not at home. The next day,
2 people went on a trip, 1 person returned, and that person that returned isn't providing us any information.
police and Gabby's family begging for the Laundrie family to speak up.
We beg you to tell us. As a parent, how could you let us go through this pain?
The Petito family even pens a heartfelt letter to Brian's parents.
As a parent, how could you put Gabby's younger brothers and sisters through this?
That evening, Brian's sister speaking exclusively with Good Morning America.
Obviously, me and my family want Gabby to be found safe. She's like
a sister, and my children love her. And all I want is for her to come home safe and sound, and this to be just a big misunderstanding.
Then, on Friday, September 17th, the Laundries call police to report Brian is missing. They claim they last saw him Tuesday the 14th. He said he was going to the county park. The family attorney says they searched for him there on Wednesday, then drove his Ford Mustang back to their home on Thursday morning. However, Eyewitness News has confirmed Laundrie's car was back in the driveway on Wednesday. On Saturday, there were dual searches for 2 missing persons. Authorities scour the massive 25,000-acre county park known as the Carlton Reserve, north of the Laundrie family home in Florida, to no avail all weekend. Across the country, the FBI, the National Park Service, and local law enforcement agencies search the mountainous terrain of Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. Search it for clues about what may have happened to Gabby. Then, on Sunday, the heartbreaking news.
Full forensic identification has not been completed to confirm 100% that we found Gabby, but her family has been notified of this discovery.
Authorities say law enforcement agents have found a body, and they believe it's Gabby.
Hey guys, this is Spectrum Bay News 9 reporter Angie Angers, and I'm here at, sorry about that. I am here at Carlton Reserve. This is where the Brian Laundrie investigation is going on. There's a number of law enforcement agencies here. Our team has been out here since 3:15 this morning. So we have no big breaking news for you, but I did want to give everybody a look. I know I've personally had a lot of people reach out to me through email and on Instagram asking for some updates about what's going on here. So I figured I would just come on live and explain a little bit, kind of give you a little bit of the sights and sounds of what we're seeing. For the most part, this has been the look all day. We're at the Venice entrance of the Carlton Reserve. There's been an officer posted up here all day, making sure that nobody heads inside the reserve. There's a number of media outlets here. I mean, we're talking at least 30 from all over the country, a bunch of national media outlets here as well. This is usually a really, really quiet area, obviously. And we have seen a lot of action coming in and out of here, specifically ATVs, UTVs. We've seen drones, we've seen multiple helicopters, we've seen a giant swamp buggy, a lot of all-terrain vehicles that we've been watching come in and out with a various number of law enforcement. So this is an FBI-led criminal investigation. That is what they're calling it. Before it was in the hands of the Northport Police Department, now it's being led by the FBI and assisted by the Northport Police Department, as well as Charlotte County, Sarasota County, and Lee County Sheriff's Offices, as well as I believe the Venice Police Department, and also some K9 crews have been out here as well. So it's really hard to tell. I'm just about to cross the street. It's really hard to tell how the rain that you can see is looming out there over the preserve, how that's going to be affecting things as we go into the next couple of hours. The latest update that we got from the Northport Police Department was at 1 o'clock, where they said there's been no sign of anything, no sign of Brian, no leads or no clues at this time. So that is all we know as of right now. So this is a little bit of a different view, different vantage point. Not a whole lot to show you guys here, but I definitely thought it was important to kind of jump on and talk about it a little bit. And I'm focusing specifically on this piece of the investigation today. My counterpart, our weekend anchor and reporter, Georgia Roman, she's working on a little more to do with what's happening with Gabby's family today and any updates on the case. I'm focusing specifically on the search. So as for what's happening way back there today, we heard from Northport PD that about 75% of the terrain that they're looking at is underwater, that these trails are all swamped out right now, and they have been. I got to get out of the middle of the road. And they have been swamped out for a little while now. They're dealing with a lot of alligators. They're dealing with a lot of snakes and a lot of bugs out there. They're using drones in order to conduct search in areas that they can't get to. They're using all-terrain vehicles, canines. They went into the laundry home and they took some of Brian's clothes and gave those clothes to the canines. That way they would be able to pick up on any possibility of Brian's scent. Again, I have no updates for you when it comes to anything that they found in here. The last we heard, all of us heard, was that nothing is come out of this so far. This is technically day 4. I mean, they're here because this is the last place, Carlton Reserve, that they said, that his parents said he was, that he went for a hike here on Tuesday night. Now, they haven't seen or heard from Brian now in exactly a week. So because this is the last known place that his parents are reporting, this is where they came to do the searching. So we had crews out on the ground in the Northport area, about 50 law enforcement officers on Saturday and Sunday. And now, today, there's more than that. But yesterday, it was interesting. I mean, I was working on our morning show yesterday, and we got an email right before 8 o'clock from the PIO, Public Information Officer from Northport, saying that they weren't conducting a search on Monday, which kind of threw us all off guard. We were curious why they weren't coming back out. Apparently they did a small aerial search, and then today they really ramped up their efforts. Also yesterday, the FBI raided the laundry home as they kind of took a pause on the search for Brian. So obviously they have reason to be back out here today on why they think he could be out here. We aren't privy to necessarily all of that information. So all we know is that their search efforts are focused here. And I just wanted to jump on and give everybody the latest. We know law enforcement is still out here. They're going to be out here for a bit longer. As far as we assume, definitely see clouds looming. Not sure how that's going to impact anything. Again, we don't know if Brian's here. We don't know any of that information for us right now. All we can do is keep you updated as we find out the latest. And our team's been working and really hard to do that, to figure out the latest twists and turns in all of this. And as soon as we know more, you know, we're going to pass along to you guys as soon as we possibly can. So I'm going to get back to work, and we will touch base with everyone soon. Thanks so much.
Robert, thank you. Now to the growing mysteries surrounding the Gabby Petito case. She is the 22-year-old woman who was last seen on a road trip with her boyfriend, who is also now missing. We have several developments this morning, including a search warrant and a park ranger in Utah and what they saw just before Gabby's disappearance. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has more.
The investigation into the Gabby Petito case taking another dramatic turn as new evidence reveals growing tensions between Gabby and her boyfriend Brian Laundrie. On Monday, the FBI swarmed Laundrie's family home in Florida 1 day after agents in Wyoming found human remains believed to be Petito's. Police are calling Laundrie a person of interest in her disappearance after he returned from the couple's cross-country road trip on September 1st without Gabby. Laundrie refused to speak to investigators and has not been seen since last Tuesday. And now a search warrant is revealing the odd final text message from Gabby's phone to her mother. It reads, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls." Stan is Gabby's grandfather, and Gabby's mother says she never called him Stan, suggesting Gabby may not have sent the text. Other messages between Gabby and her mother show there appeared to be more and more tension between her and Laundrie. In the meantime, authorities have released the 911 call made when someone in Utah claimed to have seen a domestic dispute between the couple days before Gabby was last seen. The caller says he saw Laundrie slapping Gabby.
We drove by and the gentleman was slapping the girl.
He was slapping her?
Yes, and then we stopped. They ran up and down the sidewalk. He proceeded to hit her, hopped in the car, and they drove off.
But that report appears to contradict the police report, which says no one reported that the male struck the female to the officers. And now, a park ranger who responded to that 911 call is speaking out. She says she warned Gabby that her relationship with Brian seemed toxic. Melissa Halls tells the Deseret News, "I was imploring with her to reevaluate the relationship, asking her if she was happy in the relationship with him, and basically saying this was an opportunity for her to find another path." Halls adding, "This wasn't a good day for anybody. We thought we were making the right decision when we left them." Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Well, it was a week ago that Laundrie's family say they heard from him, and the search has now crossed state lines. Vanessa Ariza with our sister station in Tampa has more from Laundrie's home in Northport, Florida.
A lot has happened in the past 24 hours. FBI agents served a search warrant here at the Laundrie home. In addition to that, the family attorney had scheduled a press conference, then canceled it, and there were reported spottings of Brian in Alabama. But let's go ahead and start with what took place here yesterday morning. Around 10 o'clock, FBI agents were here at the home executing that search warrant. At one point, Brian's parents were led by FBI agents inside of a vehicle in their driveway. His silver Mustang, that was also towed away, and multiple boxes were taken by agents. Now, the search warrant will allow authorities to look through electronic devices that may give clues as to what happened or where Brian may be. There were reports that he was seen in Alabama. Authorities checked it out, but they did not find any evidence of that. Now, there have been questions as to how Brian could have slipped away without anyone noticing and why a search warrant took this long to obtain. We spoke with a former FBI agent, who we should note is not connected to this case, to get his perspective. He says in order for agents to make moves, there has to be probable cause.
Given the discovery of the body, and a strong belief that it is, in fact, Gabby, that increases the amount of probable cause sufficiently for a judge to issue a search warrant for the Laundrie home.
Laundrie's family attorney was slated to give a press conference in New York this afternoon. However, last night, he says after he spoke with FBI agents, he says it was in the best interest of the family to cancel that press conference. In Northport, I'm Vanessa Ariza.